Out front with me now, Robert Litt, former Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at the Department of Justice and former General Counsel for the Director of National Intelligence. Stephanie Grisham is here, former Trump White House Press Secretary. And Ellie Honig, CNN Senior Legal Analyst and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Good evening, guys. Bob, Trump said that he wanted the whole affidavit released, at one point at least. The Justice Department wanted it to remain secret, obviously. So who wins here in what we've learned?
Well, I think it's significant that Trump did not call for release of the affidavit until after the Department of Justice indicated that it was going to oppose relief of the affidavit. I think that he probably doesn't want the entire affidavit released and would be much happier with the ability to point to blacked out spaces and say, look what they're hiding from you. I think at the end of the day, this is probably a net plus for the government. It's very atypical, almost unprecedented to have a search warrant affidavit released at this stage in the proceedings. But the government has the ability and has exercised that, and the judges found that they have excised all information that would compromise sources and methods or that the Justice Department would be concerned about. We don't know yet how much is going to be left for us to see, but I think that on balance, this is probably better for the government.
And Stephanie, if Trump didn't get what he said he wanted here, which he said he wanted it released, but knowing him like you do you think he's happy with this order from the judge?
You know, I think that Bob is correct that he is going to use it to just point to the redacted portions and say, what are they hiding? They're not being transparent. I think he's going to use it to play victim even more, probably fundraise off of it a little bit more. I do think, though, they're going to be scouring what is there to try and figure out exactly, you know, what they have and, more importantly, who they've been talking to, because I know from people I've been talking to that remains a #1 issue around there is who's talking, who's the mole, etc.
Ellie, I want to read again from the judge's order where he notes that the Department of Justice convinced him that portions should remain sealed. And reason being is it said, quote, disclosure would reveal just a slew of things, right? The identities of witnesses, law enforcement agents, and uncharged parties, the investigation strategy, direction, scope, sources, and methods, and grand jury information. When you lay it out that way, if that's what's out, what's going to be in?
Yeah, okay, well, DOJ succeeded at least in protecting those things you just laid out, which are the most sensitive pieces of information. Those are the pieces of information that DOJ prioritized the highest. So what could we see tomorrow when this comes out? I can think of a few things, having done a few of these affidavits. First of all, there's always going to be some legal boilerplate laying out the law, the premises to be searched, all that kind of thing. But more importantly, I think we could see DOJ's account of the ongoing negotiation between archives and DOJ and Donald Trump's lawyers. Now, we've seen some great reporting on that. We know that that negotiation went on for over a year, but this could be a definitive, specific account of that. Also, Kate, we could get DOJ's account of what documents they got before the search warrant. Because remember, Trump's team turned over 15 boxes to archives. There was a subpoena. We don't yet know exactly what was in those boxes. We could find that out as well. And if there are any aspects of the investigation that are not covered by those categories you just showed, aspects of the investigation that are already over and sort of safely done, we could learn those too, and that could be really important as well.
And Stephanie, you talked about what Trump could do with this information that does come out, like try to fundraise off of it. But do you think he will see any downside to that specific information that Ellie's saying could be coming out, that specific information coming out?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure deep down he's nervous, but he's never going to show that. He's going to use whatever he can to, you know, double and triple down like he always does. And right now it just seems to be playing the victim. So I am sure that he's nervous about whatever pieces of information will come out. And look, the media coverage, even on like with Fox, has not been good for him. I mean, he kind of had a meltdown today on his social media network. You can tell he's getting very, very nervous. And I think that that's something to think about.
You think that he's already feeling this in what you see on his social media?
Well, yeah, especially this morning. I mean, it was just so him. It reminded me of his early morning tweets when I was in the White House, when something was on his mind. And I'm sure that against people's wishes this morning, you know, people were shaking their heads. I think he's very worried. I don't think he'll admit it. I think that for the first time, things are really, I'm going to say it, the walls are closing in. And that's been said so many times, I've grown numb to it. But I think he's nervous, yeah.
Ellie, is there a potential impact of this affidavit's release if the Department of Justice does decide to bring charges against anyone involved here, against Trump or anyone else in this investigation?
Yeah, Kate, well, politics aside, this is a tactical advantage for Donald Trump because in virtually every other case, as David was saying, nobody would see this affidavit. Certainly the person who was searched would not see it. The public would not see it unless and until someone's charged. And tomorrow, Donald Trump is going to see at least part of this affidavit. That is a tactical advantage that virtually no other suspect ever has in front of the Justice Department. And so there's going to be an interesting dynamic here. Future people whose homes get searched may well come along and say, well, I'd like to see part of the affidavit against me. Why don't I get to see it? Donald Trump got to see it just because he's powerful, just because he's famous. So DOJ is going to have to continue wrestling with this, but people ought to understand just how rare it is that somebody in Donald Trump's position gets to see the affidavit at this early point.
Bob, I'm interested in your take on that as well, what the legal implications of this order could be going forward.
Well, again, it's a little hard to tell until we know what's actually going to be released.
Right.
One thing that I'm pretty confident is we're not going to learn a lot about how the Justice Department knew that there was, in fact, more classified information at Mar-a-Lago, because it's very difficult to imagine that being described without identifying the witnesses who gave the information. But I think that from a legal point of view, I don't think it's going to make much difference one way or another. I mean, if Trump were charged at the end of the day, he would undoubtedly make a motion to suppress the evidence seized from Mar-a-Lago, and his legal team would get to see the backup for that at that point. I think it's much more significant in the political realm than in the legal realm.
It's interesting. Good to see you all. Thank you so much.